Good morning, good morning. Welcome to Wednesday, 13th of Kislev. Today we're learning the third Perek of Shabbos. Today's share is sponsored Lila Nishmas, Aaron Nachum, and Simcha Cohen, Yeshua Mordechai, and Shep, Bracha, Sarah, Shmuel Leib, Yom Moshe, and Yosef. May the Hashemos all have an Aliyah. It's also a schus for Avita Ara Ben Ketlamasha, a schus for him and his gangs Mishpacha, and Shefa Bracha Vaslach, and special thank you to our corporate sponsor of the week, the Blackbird Recruiting Group. They should have haslacha in all their endeavors. Okay, here we go. Perek Gimel. This perek is talking about the malacha of Maavir, lighting a fire. It's one of the 39 malachas, and it's the Easter is um, not just lighting a fire in the first place, even making the existing fire bigger, and even stirring the glowing coals to make them burn more brightly. Those are all problems with Maavir. So, in order to prevent people from stirring the coals, the Chachamim prohibited putting food over hot coals before Shabbos and letting it remain there on Shabbos because people might come to stir the coals. So, here we go. Kira is this Perek Gimel Mishnah Aleph. Kira shehisika b'kash ubegavava. If a kira stove was heated with straw or chips of wood, so kira is a rectangular stove which two pots can be placed and a fire burning beneath them. Um, Other types of stoves are going to come up soon. So we're talking about kira. So no still there. Top still, you can you can place cooked food on it on Friday afternoon and let it remain there on Shabbos because the straw and the chips of wood burn too quickly to form coals, and therefore um, you're not going to be concerned that they're going to stir the coals and Shabbos with wood chips or straw. But gefes uva eitzim, however, if the stove is heated with pulp of or large pieces of wood, the pulp is residue from the olives or sesame. After yeah, after you squeeze them for the juice, you have the pulp left. So this residue can be used as fuel. So if it's heated with the pulp or large pieces of wood, which do form coals, lo yitain, that one may not place cooked food upon it before Shabbos. Leave it there because we're concerned that he's going to stir the coals on Shabbos, which is deraisa on the Maavir. Ad yigrof ad yitin as ha'efer. I'll let using a stove heated with these two with the pulp or with large pieces of wood is usher unless he shovels out the coals before Shabbos or puts the ash over them. Once the coals have been removed or covered, there's no chashash that he's going to stir the coals on Shabbos because they're not there anyways. So there's a machlokes as to what type of cooked items can be left on a kira before Shabbos, even if its coals have been removed or covered. So Beishamai says chamin avalotash. You can place hot water on the stove but not cooked food. Beishila omrim chamin v'tavshel. Beishila says you can place both hot water and cooked food on it. So Beishamai says that even after he, he's of the opinion that even after the clothes have been taken away, some embers still remain, and they're concerned that you might stir those. But, so you're gonna stir them in regards to food, but regarding water, it's since water heats up quickly, you're not going to come to stir you're not going to come to stir those coals, those embers. But Beis Hillel says that since the coals have either way been removed or the person has deliberately cooled them, then it's not an issue with those coals, um, with those embers on Shabbos, because you're gonna be giving too much thought. Beishamai, okay, so now we're gonna talk about other disputes between Beishamai and Beis Hillel, regarding Akira. So Beishamai says no to them. We may remove it from the stove on Shabbos, but not put it back. Beishamai holds that once you remove the hot water pot from the stove on Shabbos, you cannot put it back because it looks like he's cooking on Shabbos. It, it you know it, it, it's really not because they're cooking if he's putting water back that was actually still hot. Basil says, we may even put it back if it's still hot, and he puts it down and he's holding it the entire time. There are certain rules as to how to remove hot water or remove a cholent pot from the stove and take stuff out and put it back. Those are important halachas to know. It's not a halacha shiur, but Basil says that if you do it the right way, then you have no problem putting it back on the fire. For more details on that, consult your local Orthodox rabbi. Mishnah Beis. Tanur shehisikuhu b'kash ubegavava. If a tanur is heated even with straws or chips of wood, one may not place food either inside it or on top of it. Even though these types of fuel do not turn into coals, they create small embers, and we have a chashash that people will stir these embers in order to make the fire great again. No pun intended. Kupach shehisikua bekashu kuvava hareze kikiwain. A kupach that was heated with straw or chips of wood is treated like a kira, just as one may leave hot food on a kira that was heated with straw or chips. So too, he may leave hot food on a kupach that was heated with these same with straw or chips as well. However, if it was heated with pulp or large pieces of wood, it is treated like a tanur. As we said above, that you cannot leave the food on a kupach if it was heated with the pulp or the large pieces of wood, even if the coals were removed. Okay. Mishnah Gimel. Okay, so the Isser about cooking on Shabbos applies only when using heat that has fire as its source. If you're cooking if you're cooking with heat, let's say from the sun, even though it's not the rice usser, because it's not how cooking is normally done. But we're gonna see the issue with that. This is Mishnah Gimel. Einos dem beitza b'yitzad amechem b'shpil this galgal. We may not place an egg next to a hot kettle on Shabbos in order that it should become slightly cooked, even though the kettle is not on the fire. So you have your Shabbos pot, and the Shabbos pot is hot, and you put an egg next to it, right? So it's not directly on the pot, but it's like next to it. So you cannot do that because even it's going to get slightly warm. It's that's a problem because the rice it's not just usher to cook over a fire, but even the heat of something else that has been heated by the fire is also a problem. And we may not break an egg open and fry it upon scarves that have been heated by the sun. Although although cooking with the heat source, with heater source in the sun is the rice and mutter, the Chachamim prohibited cooking with something that's been heated by the sun because you might come to cook something that's been heated by fire, which is a problem. It's more like a precautionary issue. Rabbi Yossi says cooking an egg on with the sun heated scars is mutter because the Chachamim did not aser something that was cooked by the heat of the sun. We may not bury an egg in the sand or in the dust roads that have become hot in the sun. be sure to tell that in order to roast it. Ariosi agrees that this is usher because if one is allowed to cover an egg in hot sand or dust on Shabbos, then he might come to cover it in hot ash, which is usher de. So you gotta be careful. Most of these are precautionary. We don't want you doing the thing that's really usher, so we're gonna usher the thing that is, slightly like that. Okay, Mishnah Dalit. Maisa she'asu ansi tveria v'yivia silon shel sonim l'soch ama shel chamim. Now we're going to talk about water that was heated in a spring. So story time. Once happened that the people of Tiberia placed a pipe for cold water in a canal of hot spring water before Shabbos. You have the Chamet Tiberia, you have the hot springs. So you're putting a pipe of cold water in through the canal, so that the cold water drawn to the pipe would be heated by the surrounding hot spring water on Shabbos. So, um, the problem over here was that yes, the Tiberia has hot springs, but the springs had like an unpleasant odor and was not fit for drinking. So therefore, they um they didn't even use it for bathing until they're not drinking. So instead, they wanted to heat the clean water by the heat of the springs and use that water for drinking and bathing instead. In order to do this, they built a pipe with that is surrounding the carried cold water through a canal that was surrounded by the hot water of the springs. Um, so so they were doing that the entire week. So once they arranged for this to happen on Shabbos, and therefore this is what we're talking about over here. So the Chacham said to him, "What you that this is totally usher because you can't do hatman. It's like wrapping the food in a half substance, which is going to increase the food heat, which is usher on Shabbos. Therefore, in Shabbos, if the water was heated or kept hot on Shabbos, Shabbos is considered like water that was heated over fire on Shabbos. Asura berchitz which is usher for both bathing and drinking, um, and you cannot use that until the amount of time it would take to cook it after Shabbos. So it's beyond the chamin, beyond. And if the water was heated or kept hot on Yontif, it is treated like water that was heated over fire on Yontif. Asurim b'chitza mutar mishtia, which is usher to use for washing, but it's mutar for drinking because in the Yontif you have the heter of malachas ochel nefesh. You can do that. But back in the day when they used to take a bath once a month or something like that, then that was not Darash Shalachol Nefesh, and therefore it would be also to do that on Yantif. For nowadays, consult your local Rav. Um, Mulyar Hagruf, if a Mulyar was emptied of its coals before Shabbos, what's a Mulyar? It's a kli that was used for heating water that's made of a large bowl for water that's surrounded by a narrow place for coals. Shosin him with Shabbos and may drink hot water from from it on Shabbos. Once the coals were removed, then the muller is not hot enough to add heat to the water, only to keep it warm. Antichi, however, with regards to an antichi, which is a copper receptacle with a double bottom, with space for coals between the two, it's like a double pot almost. Alpha Pisha Grufa, even if it was emptied out of its clothes for Shabbos, and Shosim Menu, you cannot drink that water that was cut on Shabbos because the heat is trapped between the two bottoms, and therefore the Antichim is extremely hot, and it's also to use this water. Mishnah, hey, two more to go. We have Hey and Vav, and that's it. It's a short pack today, and tomorrow is even shorter. Um, Mishnah, hey, okay. Now we're going to talk about Kli Rishon and a Kli Sheni as to what their status is. Amechan Shipinahu if a kettle, which is a kli rishon, containing hot water, was removed from the fire, and even though it's removed from the fire, it still has the ability to cook for a while. But it's still hot enough. Lo yitin l'sochot sonim b'shul sheyichamu. One may not put a small amount of cold water into it in order to heat the water, because the cold water will therefore be cooked in the water of the kettle, even though the kettle is no longer on the fire. I will notice that you may put a large amount of cold water into the kettle, or you may put a small amount of cold water into a cup of hot water. In order to warm the cold water, because in both these cases, the water will be merely warmed and not cooked. Okay. If a pan or pot, the kli rishon, was removed from the fire and its contents are still boiling, still boiling, so it's hot enough that Yatzel let us bow. Lo yitain l'soch and tavlin. You may not add spices to them because the spices will therefore be cooked because they're kali abishal. I will notice who the socha ka'ara or the socha tamchay. If you made add spices to hot food that is in a bowl or a serving bowl, in a klisheni, because secondary vessels are because the klisheni, you can't cook in a klisheni. It's not a heat source. Rabbi Yehuda says the kol who knows saying he may add spices to any type of hot food, even in a kli rishon, provided that the kli rishon has been removed from the fire. Chutz midarish yesh bo chometz tzir, except food that contains vinegar or fish brine. According to Rabbi Yehuda, spices do not cook easily, and therefore they may be added even to a kli rishon once it has been removed from the fire. However, he agrees that it is us to add spices to food that contains vinegar or fish brine, because they are sharp substances that can cause even spices to become cooked. Okay, and finally, Mishnah Vav, and now we're going to talk about Muktza a little bit. We may not place a utensil such as a plate under a lamp on Shabbos in order to catch the oil dripping into it, because the oil, which is Muktza, will now make the plate Muktza. The if it was placed there while it was still day, then you can leave it there and catch the oil on Shabbos, since the person is not doing anything on Shabbos itself. You already put the plate there beforehand. But even if he placed a utensil under the lamp before Shabbos began, we may not derive benefit from the oil on Shabbos, because the oil is not prepared, therefore it is Muktza. Something that's not prepared is considered Muktza. Once it's prepared, then it's not Muktza. We may move a new, never used lamp on Shabbos, but not an old one, one that's already been used, because it has become grimy and repulsive, and therefore it's Muktza. Rabbi Shimon says, "Kol haner v'talat nechutz min haner hador b'Shabbos." We may move all types of lamps on Shabbos, even used ones, except for a lamp that is burning on Shabbos, because the lamp is considered the base for the flame and is therefore Muktza. So, if you have like a candle holder, while it's lit, you can't move it. But once it's extinguished, according to this, you'll be able to move the candlestick once it goes out. Notice, and finally, notice the kli tachas and the kibul, the kavon and tzotzos. You may place the utensil under a lit lamp on Shabbos in order to catch the falling sparks and prevent the fire. We may not place water in the utensil even before Shabbos begins, because we thereby extinguish all the sparks. Thank you for joining us. We'll continue tomorrow with Perek Daled, and have a wonderful day. Stay safe.